All right. So diving in, because I only have about an hour today. Good to see y'all, some familiar faces from earlier. Luke is getting over a sunstroke. He came back from dad's, wasn't feeling very good. And then I didn't know he wasn't feeling good. And then he went to the pool and he was there for like 4 hours and he has been out for like 5 days. Really interesting. I've been playing with my new healing abilities though. So it's really interesting when you look at free will and healing. And I mean, every single one of us here is like a natural healer, and how sometimes, and I know you guys know this, but sometimes healings are prohibited because it's a lesson or a journey. And it was interesting because he's so much like me. Like his girlfriend broke up with him right as soon as like him and I are the same. Like as soon as we have heart trouble, like it manifests into illness pretty quick. And again, it's just like all his chest was like, really like all this. And it was interesting because like I did some healing work on him, and then I was just like, do you want to just talk about what happened? And then like he just started talking about it, and his fever blew. So it was interesting, but I'm like watching him right now because I mean, it's just really fascinating how our subconscious mind works, and like I know that it's really easy to like logically understand how the subconscious mind works. In this class, the reference is the womb. Interesting that divine feminine is the soul, and divine feminine is also the subconscious. And so everything is birthed out of the subconscious. And what I want to talk about today is two things. Two of the like follow-ups to this workshop is really claiming your spiritual prosperity and really learning how to really lean on your higher self, really lean on spirit more. I think that we've had phases where we have done that, but I think in this mental world where we see and therefore we navigate our desires from what we see, this is where divine feminine has gotten into all kinds of trouble. Because the reason why she was equipped with such a grand imaginations, which so grand emotions, was that she was not supposed to take her cue from the physical world to discern and decide what she wanted. She was supposed to birth it out of her heart. And because we had to get also masculine here to survive, we began to look around and decide and discern what we wanted based on what we saw. And we're creators. So we were never really supposed to be using all these other templates, but we were raised to move away from ourselves very early. And then if we had any sort of danger, we shifted more of our focus into our masculine. And then that way we're like, okay, even though we've never felt like black or white, we have become very black and white creators. Kind of like, well, what can I do with this amount of money? How can I create my reality with this paycheck? And that's never how it was supposed to be. But ultimately, we were supposed to be leaning on our spirit, leaning on our higher selves, leaning on that divine connection the whole time. And in society, even in the Christianity, it says lean on your husband. You know what I mean? Lean on the masculine. And that is just the furthest thing from safe here. Even if you have a great guy, even if, you have a lot of freedom, even if you have a great partner, whatever the story is, it doesn't ever feel safe for you to lean on anyone else's Wi-Fi. And that's what it's getting down to. It's not money or time or support. It's their connection. It's like leaning on someone else's connection is a surefire way to create depression, disappointment, anxiety, stress, and ultimately, fundamentally, weirdly, resentment. Because you secretly, unconsciously resent that who you need to depend on, whether it's the job or the partner or whatever. It's just like needing any sort of yes or assistance from another person shrinks your spirit connection. It shrinks it. And what sucks so much about being here is that the entire reality is taught for you to do that more. And every single one of you that I've coached privately has all had major wounds around receiving. You know, it has not been safe, or you thought you could count on someone and they turned it around on you. They attacked you. They judged you. It was conditional. You know what I mean? So it's just like receiving and leaning has gotten us into all this trouble, and not really having a strong faith in our own inner connection. I think you all have a good sense of knowing. You're all clairsentient in this group, which means that you feel, you have your spidey sense, you know. But when you are living in survival for long periods of time, your survival takes over a lot of other gifts that you could be using, right? Because like your intuition needs to be survival based. Your clairvoyance needs to be survival based. Even your clairsentient needs to be survival based, which means very, very quickly, in hundreds of the billions of a second, your brain is determined whether something has value or not. And some of you are like, when am I going to get my gifts? Well, when you stop worrying about money. You know what I mean? So it's like, because if I'm worried about something happening on the mental plane, I'm using a lot of my energy to focus on protecting myself from that, fixing that. Is like solution-based mental plane. So this entire workshop has been kind of about clearing out our womb energy or our soul, clearing out our mindset around the divine masculine, our feminine role, getting back into balance and harmony with that. And as we kind of wrap everything up, it's going to be really about these two questions. Like, what is my definition of my spiritual prosperity? Because it's very different than mental prosperity. Like, it's like mental or physical wealth and riches versus spiritual prosperity, night and day different. Okay. And I'll explain that in a minute. And secondary, faith. Faith is a very triggering word to your subconscious because faith is associated with religion and spirituality. But for this class, let's use another word that is the same word, trust. You know, if I was going to say, after all these spiritual years of teaching, you guys on your own, how much do you truly, truly trust? Would you 100% lean on your higher self right now and just like let go of the reins? Even though you don't see any evidence for any support, you don't see the solution, you know, you don't even have an opportunity for a solution. Could you hand over your burden today? Because that was the whole reason we did this workshop, which was for you to become a manifester that was magnetic, which means that you've got to be leaning on spirit in order to magnetize everything. You can't be the fundamental like seeker and provider and fixer and builder in order to attract, which means how it would work is, let's say there's a stream right here, and this stream is just infinite abundance. It's like being plugged into the wall. Like it's not going away. As long as you don't turn that light switch off, it's there. You leaning all the way in and having that connection run through you. That would be spiritual prosperity, which means that your abundance, your freedom, your sovereignhood, your solutions, your opportunity, the people, places, and things would be coming from the stream through you. Now, mental or physical riches and wealth are dependent on physical and mental things, which means stocks, bonds, 401ks, a good paycheck, right? Savings in the bank, a good skill set that you could work hard with. You see the difference? So one is, oh, I'm okay for today, or I have an okay retirement. And that is about like you leaning towards your job, you leaning towards the physical like reality for your flow. Now, this flow will always be battery operated. It will never be a consistent flow. When you're leaning towards wealth and riches in physical plane, you are leaning towards that ebb and flow. Okay, it will always be an ebb and flow here because the concept of physical reality where you're leaning happens to be slavery. So if you lean over here, you got to lose something. Okay, if I lean on my physical reality for my riches and my wealth, then I'm going to have to lose my time, or I have to lose my whatever. You know, if I buy this dream house, then I got to lose my 401k. If I want to buy this over here, I got to lose something because it's kind of an eye for an eye down here, right? And it will also be, like I said, battery operated. And so all of a sudden you leaning over here and you're getting consistent juice flow, and one day it just stops, yet you're still working. Like battery died, okay? Or, you get fired, or no clients are showing up because their battery died and they have no more money to pay you. Do you see the difference? So in the difference with the spiritual prosperity, there's very different rules, okay, than the mental plane. So the number one fundamental law of spiritual prosperity is to give, right? And over here, it's like, well, I'm already doing that. But I don't mean give what you don't have a lot of. Give what you are abundant in, what is already flowing through you, right? It's like lack in any area of your reality will keep you chained to the mental plane. This is why I created the mall for you guys, and this concept of never go to bed in lack. See the cup half full no matter what, no matter how dark the day is, because the lack magnetizes you to the mental world of wealth and riches, which means that if you are leaning towards more believing in this is the only way you're going to be able to produce results. Not that both don't exist, but remember, your belief systems dictate reality. So if I'm leaning towards more I want to really create this, then I lean this way and I look for the money. Okay. Am I going to be thinking about giving from the abundant part of my heart right now? Or I'm going to be figuring out how I can get something back with what I'm giving. So in the spiritual prosperity, it's first and foremost about trust and really securing your relationship with your higher self, or whatever you want to call it. God, Jesus, higher self, the divine flow, source energy, whatever doesn't trigger you. Okay. But it's all the same. It's the infinite supply. Okay. That's what the metaphysicians call it. There is an infinite supply of abundance. And it is literally like your birthright to have all of the wealth and the bounty and the freedom and the abundance that you could ever have, right? If you are trusting the lean, which means when you lean, you got to know something's supporting you, because you're going to lose your balance. You're going to fall into something. And we've leaned on physical reality our entire lives, and it's never held us up consistently. It's dropped us, it's left us in the cold, but it's the only way we were taught to lean, if we ever had to lean. And what we've tried to do while we're taking this class is we've tried to stay in the middle and support ourselves, and then put the cup over here and then bring it back. So we're not leaning on anybody. We're not leaning on anything. And because spirit has felt inconsistent in your life, because as soon as you're in survival, guys, spirit disappears. As soon as you are in survival, spirit disappears, because it's a conflicting reality. It's like, as soon as you're looking over here in lack, you don't see the flow. Okay, so as soon as there's a lack belief system that moves your head to the mental world, well, now you're cut off from the supply. And we have been believing that we've been cut off, not that we've cut ourselves off. Yeah, guys, how I've been teaching for years, if you've been in my classes, it's like 2 degrees to the left. I've always said that, every single thing you want is literally 2 degrees to the left or the right. It's never far away. But in the mind of belief systems that keeps us captive, it feels like no matter where we go, we're in the dark searching and we just cannot find it consistently. We'll have it in waves, but it doesn't, it's almost like we get it and then we don't stay there. We get it and then we go over here and put out all the fires, don't we? We get the flow started to move and then we quickly turn away from it and we put out this fire and then we're like, it's not coming back. I thought this was supposed to come back. I thought this was an infinite supply. And so then what we do is we get really scared and worried, and then we actually lean more. Okay, what else can I do over here? Can I work extra hours? Do I need to kiss my boss's butt over here? What do I need to do now to get some more? Instead of going, oh, my cup is empty, and moving back over here. It's such a simple process. And I mean, thousands and hours of books on tape that I have been literally going back to all the early metaphysicians just to make sure I've got this concept correctly as I was in the ditches for a while. And I'm like, they're all saying exactly the same thing. And then when you look at it from a different perspective, it's like, oh, the infinite supply, right? And so it's just like, but my whole entire soul only knows how to lean this way, even though this has never consistently supported me, or I haven't enjoyed it. There's no one here in this class that enjoys being codependent on someone else's paycheck. They don't enjoy it. I don't care whether you're grateful for it or not, you don't enjoy it, because there is a burning desire inside of you to create or contribute or to birth. Okay. It's not that you don't love having a great partner that can contribute. You absolutely love that. But there is an awareness inside of you that's like, where's mine? And so that is what gets us irritated, and it actually gets us more into lack. The more we look for it and the more we ask why and where, the more in physical reality we become, because we're looking for something that you can't see. And so now we're going to try to look for evidence. We're going to do a lot of self-work on why can't I make money? What's wrong with me? Instead of going back to that childlike state of, oh, I'm supposed to lean on the divine. Okay. And this is why in non-duality today, I was like, clean up your shit with spirit, clean up your relationship with God, clean up your relationship with whatever you've gotten into in your subconscious, because like, ladies, it's time to lean. And it's time to lean on the bigger version of you, not your partner or a job opportunity or a loan that you have coming. That's great if you have all of those things, but let that just be crutches while you learn to lean. Okay, like literally practicing leaning has very different rules. Remember, if you guys remember doing quantum fitness, I said the love language of the inner child is only two things. The inner child's love language is, I want to share and I want to touch. That's it. And all you truly want to do at the basis of your prosperity heart is you want to share who and what you have within you, and you want to touch lives. You want to touch hearts. You want to make an impact. You want to make a difference. And so from a little child's physical reality, touch point, touch, I'm here, you're real, I'm real. Okay. And I want to share. So notice how generous you are when the abundance is flowing. Notice how giving you are. Notice how you let things slide. You know, you got that flow that came in. You're not mad at nobody. You actually have more compassion for people when you are in the flow. Notice as soon as that flow breaks, now there's like, why do I have to keep doing this for you? You know, why it's like all of a sudden the things that didn't irritate you and you were quite happy to help begin to push your buttons and think, hey, this is out of the exchange balance. 2 minutes ago, you were in bliss and you had plenty of money and you were buying everybody drinks at the restaurant, right? And now you just looked and your supply's gone and you're looking in lack to find it. And now you're like, how come so-and-so never pays when we go out? You know what I mean? It's like that quick. It's that quick of a shift. So you got to recognize when you are in the mental, physical world looking for your inheritance of being a divine feminine, being a child of God. Like you cannot look in physical reality for that, because that's not where it comes. It has to come from you completely leaning in, which means blind faith or blind trust, practicing your prosperity tools, which I'm going to give you guys today. And then before the evidence, you are already sharing your heart and touching lives. That's it. Because that is the only exchange that the spirit wants from you, is if I give you your infinite supply of spiritual abundance, you got to prove that you are God with this. Okay. That is the exchange. It's not like, well, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. You will be, because as soon as you are in the flow, you feel worthy. As soon as you got that big check, you feel deserving. So notice when you have money, how much more worthy you feel. Notice when all your bills are paid, how much more deserving you feel. Okay. So when you lean on spirit, what we've got to do is learn to lean and pay the bills, right? And like give it out, but do not go into this world and reroute yourself, because this world is where that flow stops. All right. You were never meant to disembark your beauty by going out and working hard. You were never supposed to get your hands dirty. You were never supposed to lift a finger. You were supposed to love and inspire and be magical and be amazing and be beautiful. And then that's how that glow from source energy would move through you and inspire anyone around you. Okay, but we've been trying to inspire people by hard work, being a good employee, being a great mentor, being a good teacher, showing up. We've been trying to get our value from the mental world that we want from the spiritual world, and we don't get it, do we? Because down here, there's something called a martyr, and that just wasn't made up. That's from overgiving. Okay, so what we do is we overgive to the point where we lose our spiritual connection, and then we have to ask the pettiness of the physical world for help, don't we? It's like we have to put our tail between our legs and then go look for help because like our supplies cut off. But 2 minutes ago, we were riding high on the horse. Okay, and so when that money line starts to get bent or it starts to get triggered, don't do what I was doing for all these months, you know, trying to like go in and look and see what problem I was creating, you know, like where am I at? I mean, I knew my subconscious was full of trash, but while I was seeding and weeding, I would have to go lean over here to try to figure out how to pay all the bills by myself, you know, which what I wanted to do was just be like a child and just lean into my parents, right, for my supply, you know, I mean, but there's a lot of us in this class that actually couldn't do that as children. You know, we couldn't just lean off the couch and daddy run over and pick us up. He'd go, see, that's what happens when you lean, you fall. He wasn't there to pick us up. So again, that is going to be birthed into our subconscious. And so now when we're on a spiritual journey, our subconscious mind identifies the father-mother energy with our childhood, not this divine connection that we're studying about, not spirituality at all. So we are literally learning and teaching people about this source, but we are living off of this world, this plane of having to be men and women and try to do it all. And it's never enough. And the reason why it will never be enough for a woman is because she's the house of abundance and space. If there's an empty space, she wants to fill it. Okay. And if there's no space, she wants space. And she's always going to want more from what she just conquered because she's creator. What else can I create? What else can I do? So she's never going to ever stop the desiring point from her inner child's perspectives. You know, you talk to a guy and he's like, we got a fence. And you're like, I want a new fence. And then we got one. You know, they're always so quick to tell you what we already got. And we're like, yeah, now we need a better one. You know, but they're that black and white we already have. It's good enough. I've got one shirt and it's got a hole in it, but it works. You know, and we need one in every color because that's who we are. We have different personalities, so we have different moods. Okay, and this is why men and women are so difficult to get along with in that space of desiring, because their desire is to have it and keep it. They want to keep it clean, they want to keep it consistent, but they don't necessarily want to build or like, we only lived here a year, you already want to move? Yeah, because this home inspired me for something bigger. You know, that's divine feminine. Or we need another house, like we need a beach house, we need a mountain house. And the guy's like, what do you need that for? And so that's kind of the idea of this mental plane. You're always going to be seen like you're ungrateful or that you want too much or that you're too flaky, because this getting something inspires you to want something else. You know, once you start creating, you're like, well, I can do that. I can do this. Okay. The only problem we've had and why our heart gets trashed here is because we keep leaning into here when our North Star, our true GPS, is always getting us to try to lean over here. And this is what I'm saying. You guys got to work through the daddy issue. You got to work through the God issue. You got to work through any issues with mama, right? Or any issues with your body, because that's going to be associated with being able to just lean like a child who is doted upon. Can you imagine having parents that literally their life revolved around you. I know some parents like that, but they're our age. Okay, they're called helicopter parents. Like every single thing they do is like the whole, which I don't think is healthy because it's coming from lack. It's coming from what they are lacking. And so they are giving what they didn't have. But I'm saying, what if they were in abundance and all these things, and their whole world revolved around making sure that you felt seen and heard, safe, and you knew that you were in a constant lean. Now, there was a give and flow. There was giving back, because what you would do with that is the same thing that you get from your children. Okay, like your kids or your pets, they get fed, they get treated like kings. And what we get from that is their love, attention, humor, right? The sassiness. We get to be in their presence, don't we? We feed them and take them to the vet and take them to wherever they want to be, because we get to be in their presence. And you see how they are not trying to prove their worth to you. They are like, I'm here. You had me. I didn't choose to come. You know, like, you need to take care of me. Can you imagine saying that to our parents? Because we came from a different time where it's like, I'm sorry, I'm born. Please feed me, you know? And then this generation is like, you didn't kiss the ground I walked on today, Mom. You know, and it's such a different generation, which is why these kids, no matter how entitled they are, they're going to be fine. But the only problem is they've learned to lean on you, not source. Right? So some kids are going to be leaning on you when in their 30s, living in your basement, or they're going to keep coming back to you because, well, that's the supply. So I've talked about this in lots of different ways over the years, but ultimately I like the Wi-Fi reference, because we all know what it feels like to have no Wi-Fi. The only thing you can do on your phone is look at pictures and play games that are sediment. They're not moving, they're not connected, they're not interactive when you do not have a Wi-Fi connection. You can still play on your phone, but it's pretty darn boring. And all you really can do is look at the past, because there's the pictures of the past in there. And so in order for you to get Wi-Fi, you got to connect to a source. Okay. Now, there's a lot of times when we've been traveling all over the world and we'll be like, who's got the hotspot? You know, someone was smart enough to pre-plan and bring a hotspot, and then we all hook on to that all weekend or all week, you know, and we're like, oh, thank goodness you brought a hotspot, because our phone doesn't work in Iceland or something. And then we're all leaning on her. Okay. Now you can see why creating a source for yourself feels good, because when people lean on you, you feel important. You know, and we were able to do that for a while in 3D when we had lots of hormonal energy. But as we get to a certain age as women, we're like, I'm tired of everybody leaning on me. I don't get my value from that anymore. Like I used to get a lot of value from you. You used to feed me. But now it's not, because that value that you were siphoning from source energy when you were able to help everybody with their bills and stuff is no longer there when you're tired. You don't have that mental energy to get out in the work world and work so hard anymore. And now you're like, I need some help. But now I feel terrified to ask, because it usually comes with conditions, or I feel like a victim. Okay, I know you can relate to this. So when we're learning how to lean back to spiritual prosperity, there has to be like insane faith, because for a while you're rebuilding the connection, you're going to be leaning and you're going to have to be like leaning on basically like imagining it, because the thing is you are imagining this right now. And so you've got to imagine the source. You've got to imagine every single thing that you want to create. And then you've got to make sure that the faith is planting it in your subconscious. That's why faith is like, you have to believe it before you see it. So the spiritual prosperity has completely different rules. In 3D, you have to give something to get something. It's never a win-win situation in the mental world of riches. Okay. This is why so many billionaires have like 8 heart transplants, because you give away health for wealth down here. And I know all of you have given away some health for some money, guaranteed. You've worked yourself to the bone. You're exhausted. Okay. So, and I'm not saying you're not going to want to work after this or not do your job after this, but you would do your job even if you didn't get paid. That's what I want you to look at. In the mental world, everything you're doing right now, if you're doing it because it gives you a paycheck, you're leaning in the mental. If you're doing it because you just love it, right? And you would do it even if you weren't getting paid. Like if your supply was coming over here, would you still do your job? Well, then you are on purpose. Okay. But if the only reason you're at your job is because of that abundance, then that is actually taking you away from your stream. It's just truth. And it's draining you because you're probably around toxic people and energy. So how do you lean this way when this is all your body knows? Because remember, if you were in divine non-duality today, I said, the only thing we have left to do is reprogram the body. That's it. We don't have to reprogram our anything else because our heart is in good condition. Our spirit is all coming back to itself and it's ready to go. And it's saying, lean on me. And then you lean, and because you don't believe it's there, you fall. And that's where faith comes in. And this is why, like, there's going to have to be some reconciliation with your spirit or higher self or whatever you want to call God. And you got to work through where you believe he hasn't or it hasn't been there for you. Because every single time that we have felt like God or source was not there for us, it's because we were leaning this way. Because it's like, it's omnipresent. It's always there. It doesn't move. It stays in the exact same location. We are the ones that move. So we've got to get that. Like when that came home to me, it was like, oh, but see, here's the thing. Like if my father hurt me and then I'm like, the church tells me to, lean into the father. I'm like, that's not safe. Because that's association to my subconscious who doesn't know the difference between God and dad. Or the idea of the masculine is hurt you, right? I'm not going to lean into the father energy. Okay. And if you've got allergies or some sort of, you've been injured by Mother Nature, you might have some phobias about this too. But every physical issue in your body is from the lack of lean. You're leaning in the wrong direction if your body's sick. We're leaning in the wrong direction consistently if we're consistently like running out of the pot. Like the pot is supposed to refill itself. And if we were leaning onto spiritual prosperity 24 hours a day, then it would be flowing through us 24 hours a day. Okay. So like if I walk out of the room that's lit, and it's dark in the hallway, it's not that room's fault, is it? It's because I walked into the hallway. But see, we are not understanding because of our wounding that we are walking away from the source. And so we have to get to the root issue of why we would ever walk away from that source. And I just showed you a couple of core issues: daddy issues, mommy issues, early childhood issues, not feeling safe to share, not feeling safe to give, or you were humiliated when you gave, or you were abused when you gave. You see, so not to bring up all the past that we just have been trying to clear out, but just a reference point that you are a new being every single day. And you do not have to include your past in today if you don't want to. But if your past is getting included in today, it's because your subconscious mind is too full of the past. Okay, so the more work that you do cleaning out your subconscious, the more your body will naturally lean this way. So look at it as like a weight. If something is heavier on one side or the other, it's going to naturally lean, isn't it? And so you've just gotten so much weight on you with the guilt and the shame and the humiliation that you're just more of a vibrational match to the mental world. So you have tried to be as spiritual as possibly can in this mental world, haven't you? You have still been your father's daughter. You have still been a child of God, but because you're so heavy with all that grief and loss, then this is the only world you can feel unless you're in meditation or unless you do get, a loan that comes through and you are able to buy, because that just naturally brings you over to the flow that it makes you believe that this is never going to run out because it just feels so good. Oh, this is starting to flow. So what we do is like, we go over here and start putting out fires, like I said, and then we realize, oh my God, there's so much overwhelming things to do over here. And now I'm getting heavy again. And so in order to establish faith, what I would say is your best mode of attack here is to look at your limiting beliefs around being able to safely submit Okay. And you're probably like me, minus a couple of you who've got great partners. Never have you ever been able to submit. The only place you've ever been safe is someone else submitting to you, right? The only place you've been safe is in the dominance. Okay, so that was my story. And this is why I got myself into all this big mess of, well, I want to be able to submit safely to God. It was like, well, that's a whole pile of mess. And so all these months, I have been learning to lean back into spiritual prosperity. And so the ways that you force the lean, okay, and it's the same as non-duality. We're weeding and seeding. We're weeding and seeding, which means that we're spending time in imagination, and we're seeing how abundant we are without the money, without time, without obligation. We're just seeing what's in our heart. Like if I could have anything I wanted right now, right, without needing a paycheck to get it or someone to give it to me, like what would I be living? You'll see how naturally rich you are. Okay, you'll see like where you would live. It's not poor. You're not in lack when you let your heart just speak, because your children will ask for the most craziest stuff because they think they're made of money, right? Because they're rich. And so they're asking the equivalent of their soul. And then we are shaming them usually and like, who do you think you are? And now we're imprinting in their subconscious mind when their subconscious mind is born rich. Okay. And so your subconscious mind gets bloated and heavy with lack. It don't matter how hard you work, you're going to end up in the same situation. No matter how much money you start off with, you're going to be in the same situation. And so the story of the billionaires that are in the mental or in the physical world, it is always, always, always competition in a race, because they're always running out. Even if they don't ever run out, they believe they're running out. They need more and more and more and more and more. And because they're in lack, they don't feel like they have it. Okay. They don't even feel, they don't feel like it's enough. They feel like it takes somebody else's. So it's never enough. All right. And we were like, we'd be happy with a little bit of that. But if we were in the mental world all the way, we wouldn't be. It would not satisfy us. It would never satisfy us. Okay. So the laws of spiritual prosperity is number one, faith in your divine connection. That is like the number one rule, like faith, knowing that there is an infinite stream of abundance that's not personal. It's all of ours. It's not like Susan has one and I don't. That's not how it works. There is a spiritual prosperity that is ever flowing like water that never turns off. Infinite supply of abundance that we can all access now, every one of us. So there's no favorites. Okay. And there's no like, it's my turn. It's big enough for all of us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's how much it is. Okay. And so what we've got to do is take all those belief systems I just said away. Well, so-and-so has it and I don't, belief system. Okay. I've got to work hard for money, belief system. Okay. I always see other people getting what I want, belief system. I work harder than other people, belief system. Well, and these are just things I was saying. I can imagine what you've said. And as soon as you believe it, then you see proof of it, and then it becomes impregnated with it. Because you say it or you feel it, and then you see it happen, and then you record it as true. But see, there's a part of you that tries not to believe that it's true. There's a part of you that's like, no, we've got this. We just got to work a little harder. We just got to stay there a little bit longer. We've just got to suck it up. We've just got to promote ourselves a little bit more. And that part of you is a part of you that's getting in trouble. Okay, the part of you that's trying to make the best out of this limited supply that is designed to tease you and breadcrumb you, right? Like, oh, I can't wait for my Social Security to come in. You may not even get that. If they change their mind over here, what little supply you thought you got is gone if they change their mind, or if they don't do something good with your investment. Okay, so you do not have a guarantee here, no matter how hard you've worked. Because this is the story of lack, and this is the story of abundance. So getting back to that inner child, okay, spending time in your imagination is another prosperity tool, because your brain doesn't know the difference between real and imagination. And if you can generate the feeling that goes with the thoughts consistently, repetitively, the subconscious mind will eventually adapt it as true. That's how it did it in the first place. You've just spent so much more time in lack that you believe in it, even if you don't want to believe in it. Okay, so this is where like the accountability and the responsibility has to come in. We have to stop listening to our conscious mind that's trying to go, no, we are in lack. We just need to work this much more. Like lack is lack and abundance is abundance. And abundance does not come from hard work or worthiness. It comes from existence. Okay, the trees are not deciding who's worthy. They all get the oxygen. They all get what they need. Okay, now when we are in the stream of abundance, the way that we don't get pushed out of it, because you can get pushed out of it too, is you've got to take it and give it. Take it and give it. That is the only thing that the divine asks from you, is to, because there's so few people that are actually connected to source, that in order for people to know about source, you have to be the source of the connection. That's all the divine wants from you, okay, is to become the hotspot for other people until you can show them how to get here. That is our job. And that's what we've been trying to do with spiritual counseling and coaching, is to be the hotspot. But all along, we're hotspotting off the mental plane, which then as soon as we get off the phone, we're exhausted, you know, or we're tired, or that client couldn't even pay us. So when you no longer need paying clients, but you still want to teach, that's how you know you're connected. All right. When you are willing to give your services away for nothing because you have faith in the divine, then you're connected. So it's almost like you've got to practice it before it happens, because you've believed it away, even though it's still right here. Belief is stronger than divine energy. That's how strong belief is it could be right next to you and you can't feel it. And it will feel like you're being punished. It will feel like you're being left out, especially if that's the story of your childhood. Source is going to treat you exactly the way your parents treated you until you repair your subconscious mind. That's just the truth, because it's A equals A. It's parents, God, the whole thing is all mixed in together and it's a hot mess. And not that many coaches talk about this. They just talk about tapping into the source. And you're like, how do I do that when my dad wasn't safe, you know? And so this is why I want to give you guys this biohack that I've been learning over these last few months, is when you go into that stream, you've got to share so generously that it's almost too much. Okay. It's like, it's almost too much. And so that was where the definition of the 10th came in. If you guys have studied the prosperity work, a lot of different metaphysicians will talk about the 10th. Give a 10th. Give a 10th of your energy, give a 10th of your money. Now the churches call it tithing. All right. And we also have damage from these really fat, bloated churches that have taken from people who couldn't afford it, saying you've got to give 10% to God, where they're driving a new Lamborghini. So you might have a trigger with tithing. So we don't want to call it tithing. We want to call it the 10th rule. Okay. By giving a 10th of what you have, money, time, energy, whatever you have, and then not needing anything to come back from you, and practice leaning, you will get 10-fold back. Okay. I am experiencing this now. So trust me, this is not full crap. But I didn't believe this either. There was a lot of weeks where I was like, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything. I need to go back over here. You know, at least I can touch this problem. You know, I can put my hands in this problem. I can't put my hands here. So again, even though we're very spiritual, because we've spent so much time in our masculine, like we feel safer in hell than we do in this unseen heaven. And so like learning to lean into that and having faith. And when you have a problem come over, you actually supply. There's another rule for prosperity. You're not supposed to take this problem into physical reality and ask for help. This is where it's bought us in the ass. We're supposed to take this burden or this problem and turn it over to infinite source and then go give what we have. And then that's a vibrational match to the flow. You see how in this way, in this law of the 10th, you're never in lack. Now you might be terrified as you give your last $10 away, or, you know, you're give another free energy session away, or whatever you can, whatever you have a value inside of you. Okay. But that's where the faith comes in. And you'll have to do this for a while you're reconditioning your subconscious mind, because ultimately your subconscious mind doesn't believe in this infinite source. And so you're doing all these things in physical reality and non-physical reality, and you're not getting any proof right away. Okay. But I will tell you that if you give a 10th away and it doesn't come back to you, it is because, first of all, your subconscious doesn't believe. But when it does, it could be 100 times. Just know this. Because every time you've given, you get the equivalent in the spirit world. Now, most people, I will tell you, now that I have actually been able to connect to these higher realms and like talk to these people up there, is they say that most people never get their spiritual prosperity until they cross over. And then it's like so much is waiting for them, but their subconscious wouldn't believe it was theirs. When you ask, it's always given. It's created right before you think of it. You know what I mean? Before you call, I'll answer. You know, it's like, it's all in the scripture. But again, it's almost like now the scripture's been tainted because of all of our abuse with the church. So it's like when we learn to lean on that prosperity, the number one thing is believing it exists. And so what I had to do is I had to read a bunch of books to prove to myself that this was true. And now I didn't read nothing. It was all audio, like audio tapes while I'm doing dishes and stuff. I've literally been bombarding my mind with this principle because it just wasn't taught to me. Even though, like, from a spiritual place, when I would be in that spiritual prosperity, I would know this. My physical reality never showed that. The money always ran out. It always became a drought. If I was not over giving, you know what I mean? Like, I always had to over deliver here. And then I would still hurt people because it was not enough, because they were in lack. You know, when someone else is in lack and you go to give them, it won't be enough. And so this is why people have issues with you when you have overgiven, because they're also in lack. And so it's not enough for them either. And then you're like, well, you see how it's like you're doomed to fail here. And the more spiritual you are, the better food you are for this world, because they are draining all of your extra out of you until basically you have to live off the system. Okay. And then they make you feel bad for having to live off the system that they literally drained everything inside of you. We've watched some of our parents go through that, where they're like hooked up to a machine and watching TV 8 hours a day because that's all they can do. You know, and they have to live on Medicare and all these things and get crappy healthcare. So it's our job. It's our job to connect to this divine prosperity. And the prosperity tools are be prosperity, no matter what. So if you don't have a 10th to give, and you have no time to give, and you have no healing to give, and you have no resource, like any resources to give within you, give away your stuff. Okay. I just talking about in non-duality, the biggest reason why we can't get out of physical reality is because we are too heavy. We are too burdened. We are too bloated. We're too overweight. We're too all these things metaphorically that is keeping us from even being able to stand up straight and lean over here. Like, we're too bloated. So, like, cleaned out my entire garage, gave a lot of stuff away, donated some stuff. What I've been having a good time with now is finding like these women's shelters. And, you know, I've got 10 of everything and I don't need it. Right. And so when I didn't have money to give at the time, like donate, this made me feel really good because it wasn't like a thrift store where they were going to resell it for a higher value. So that starts to give you the feeling of prosperity, especially when you don't have it to give. Is that you're actually getting a lean. Like, if you give something you just do not have, they will force lean you, and you'll be getting closer and closer and closer. But it is the very thing that feels so irresponsible in this culture, in this physical world. It's like, what about you? Don't you have to wait? You have to wait for a rainy day. You know, are you going to be okay? And so if you go, I'm going to give to someone who can never give back to me, or I'm going to give to someone who has helped me. So these are the two areas that giving. And I know Gina's like, yep, this is what we learn in the church, but I'm giving it to you from the metaphysics, not from the covert level here. This is the raw spiritual prosperity, is give to people who could never give back to you, ever. And give to those who have helped you connect to the stream. Okay, people that have helped you connect to the stream, or things that have connected you to the stream. Like for me, I just love that Chosen show, and they started that show all on donations. And so I donated to the app because I'm like, I want I want more people to be able to see this show. It's like, it's so heartwarming. And so, you know what I mean? That wasn't a person, but that show helped me grieve a lot of my religious grief that I had. I purged on that, watching that show. So it was like, thank you. Okay. There was a couple of like authors that I really loved the book. And so I went to their website and they just had little donations, you know, just little here and there. But it started making me feel like a child again. You know, when you're a little kid, you're more excited to give your parents the present than you are like getting it when you're really in that space where you have something to give. Like Luke will take weeks and he'll wrap stuff he has, you know, like we'll get some of his toys, like, wow, but he's so excited, you know, because it's like he wants to give from his heart, not from his bank account. So spiritual prosperity is about giving from your heart. Okay. Not what is given that makes sense. You know, it's not going to make sense with your five senses in the spiritual realm. It's going to make sense with your third eye senses. So when you give a tenth of your time, of your money, of your crap in your garage, of, you know, your help, look at how much knowledge you have. If you didn't have a penny, look at how much knowledge you have in yourself. You could start a free web channel called The 10th and just donate some of these learnings that you have. And you're like, well, I'm beyond the teachings but people are waking up and they need this. All these certificates that you guys have. I know you're light years ahead of it, but there are some people that are just waking up that would literally not be able to get through their life right now without something you know. So then you're going to have to get through your fear of showing up for people or putting yourself out there. Because the first thing the church is going to teach you is to become the word. You got to go out there and preach. And I am not saying that that is spiritual prosperity. But what I am saying is that you need to put yourself out there in those situations and give what you have if you want more. Because we're tapping into a line that has nothing to do with who you were yesterday. It holds no grudges. It holds no animosity, right? It doesn't care if you stole this morning. If you are in this moment forgiven yourself, then you are forgiven. Okay, so you start leaning in. The way that you feel safe in the lean is to practice the prosperity before the flow comes in. Does this make sense? Are you guys getting this? Okay, any questions on this? Anything that you're not understanding, any way that I can say it differently? And again, I know every single woman that I'm listening to here gets this already. I'm not teaching you something you don't know. But hopefully just the example of the lean, maybe something uniquely can click for you. And I will tell you that every single time you have a worry and a fear, you move over here. So what do you do with your worries and fears? You turn them over. This is why you got to learn trust, because you got to feel safe to turn your fear over to God or turn your fear over to your higher self. You deal with it. I'm tired of being afraid about this. While you're dealing with my fear, I'm going to go clean out my garage and give some toys away. Okay. So this is how you rebuild your connection, is you start working with the divine in a giving, receiving way before your body feels it, before your bank account feels it. Okay. So the only time lapse that it will take you between here and there is what's in your subconscious. So you might have to do this for a little while if there's a lot of lack in your subconscious. Because a lot of abundant people I know are actually secretly in lack. Okay, like we look very abundant, we're in lack. Because we have to be strong, we have to work, we have to show up. Okay, And so what I mean is getting back to that childlike wonder where all you do is wake up in the morning and be like, how do I get to demonstrate God? Because that's what your kids are doing every day. We love them. We're like, look at that, look what they just did. It's hilarious, you know, and that is their paycheck. And they live better than we do because they're attached to the stream. I know there has been times where I have given my children things that I could not get for myself. And there was no way they were going to go without it, because ultimately they asked and they fully believed they deserved it. And so there was something inside of me that was like, they're going to have this. And they were super grateful for it, but I was going without. You don't think source energy wants the same for us? And this was the thing, is like, I didn't really have a relationship with source like I thought I did. I knew that it would come through my channeling. I knew that it would come through my, and I thought eventually I would get the prosperity, eventually, because I did get paid well, but it was only as good as the last session, you know, or the last workshop. It's like, it didn't just come out of nowhere. Now, sometimes if I was really in the flow, like when I was on tour and like we were just in the flow, I didn't make a dime on the tours. You guys, I paid to be on those tours with all the food and stuff, but it was so much fun that I was attracting prosperity in other ways because I didn't care about the money. It was literally like a big party to see all my best friends, you know? And that's when I was had the biggest level of prosperity, when I was just giving and giving, and I wasn't expecting really, I mean, you guys paid in, but didn't even pay a tenth of basically what we paid out to be there. Some of those into those tours, you guys, I was writing $50,000 checks to just be in their hotel. Okay. If I would have charged what we would have needed to make money on nobody would have been able to come. It would have been $4,000 each for us to break even. Wi-Fi alone is like $400 a day in a hotel, you know? So when we look at this idea of when you were truly in prosperity, like have you ever been here? Have you ever been in the flow where the more you loved and the more you played, the more money came in? Because I've not seen that in the physical world. I'm not seeing that happen. I've not seen it replace itself so fast and then it just keeps doubling. Because the thing is, in spiritual world, the more joy you have, the more you're worth over there. Basically, the more you can take. Because joy is infectious. Okay. So the happier I get, the more source wants to give me. The more grateful I am, the more source wants to give me. Just like children. When children are gratitude, I want to give them everything. When my kids are grateful, I want to give them the world. When they're entitled, I'm like, I'm going to stop your flow so you can learn a lesson. And see, what we think is we're not entitled. Like, we're so grateful. But when you are in lack, there is this arrogant entitlement hidden somewhere. Because I know I've had the conversation. At first, I had to get mad at God. I was like, I have worked thousands of hours for free. I have helped people who've never helped me back. And this law of 10th, where is it? Because I ain't seen it. You know, I had to get angry. And basically what I got back was, well, you weren't standing in the stream when you did it. So it doesn't count. It doesn't count. But you're every single thing that you've done that is like your God self gets recorded over there. They don't take score of any of the bad stuff. But all the stuff that you do gets recorded, and it will come back to you once you are living in this energy, like living in this energy. And honestly, it's got to be faith. It's giving without receiving. It's giving this part of your talent to people who need it, even if you don't think you're that good at it. You know what I mean? There's so much talent inside of you. And what are you really giving out? And if you are giving, give more. While you're cleaning your subconscious mind out of all the belief bullshit, and I would say you got to get really clean on the idea of money, family, God. That's what's going to empty out your subconscious for you. Okay. There can't be any lower vibrations. If there's lower vibrations, you won't be able to connect to the stream 24/7. If there's lower vibrations, you'll be able to lean in and out, in and out. If you get triggered, you're back over here. Okay. And then whatever you had in your hand when you lean back over here is going to run out eventually. So it's almost like this. Imagine I'm connected to the stream, but, you know, like all of a sudden, because I have an obligation over here, it gets my attention and now I'm triggered. So I basically take what I have over here, and now I'm dealing with this big mess, and eventually I'm going to run out of this. And then I'm going to be like, where is it? But now I'm over here and it ran out. So is this metaphor making sense? Does anybody have any questions about it? Anything that they're confused on? Because I mean, the spiritual prosperity is very different than wealth over here. Okay, because if you talk to someone over here, wealth is about savings and investments and stocks and bonds and overtime, blah, 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 blah. And the child inside of you is like, what? No, thanks. I just want to connect to the stream, right? And again, you think, oh, I'm irresponsible if I'm not worrying about my retirement. The worst thing you could do is worry about your retirement over here. That would be basically you attached to this plan. If I were you, I'd spend every dime I had to get to the stream. You know what I mean? Like, because this is your retirement. Now, whether or not your body believes in what I'm saying is basically going to be how you show up from this move on. Because if you want to believe this, then there's a possibility for you. If you're just like, this is absolute horseshit, right? Then you're not going to get there, and you're going to have to follow the rules of the mental plane, which are going to be changing. Because, you know, anytime there's an election, the whole world gets changed, and there's a lot of big changes coming over in here. And what this does, and this is why I went through this year. You know, I was thinking back the other day, in 2014, I gave a second Sunday that I said everything was going to change in March 2023. I didn't know it was for me. I didn't know it was talking about me. I know it was my end of my old life, but it was. And here I am prophesizing. I'm like, my higher self's like, yeah, you're about to die, basically. I'm glad I didn't know that, you know, but I did. And now I see the light, literally, because it's like, now this is so obvious. But I will tell you that I am not perfect at the lean yet, because I have practiced so much of wanting to be over there, but my body not feeling worthy, not feeling deserving, not knowing how. I mean, I've read the prosperity tools a million times, and they don't click if you don't believe in it. You can read something 12 times, you know, like I say the same things over and over again, and then you're like, oh, I finally got it this time. Not because I said it again, but because you were ready to believe it and receive it. So it is divine timing. And that's why I say, like, if you're going through a season right now where you just are not motivated to like work hard, and you just are done with all these bullshit rules over here, and like, if your partner is like, we've got to do this and this and this, it's like, you know, or your partner's being super awesome, but you want to contribute that flow, or you want to be able to show her or him how to do that. You've got to, and this has got to be completely top secret between you and spirit. I will tell you, your prosperity can't be a family experience, because they're not on board with leaning over here and giving away 1/10 of their stuff yet. So what I would recommend is you doing this with your stuff, not their stuff. Don't give 1/10 away of their stuff, your time, your superpowers, your healing abilities, your voice. Okay. Go volunteer somewhere, do something. And then when that abundance starts to flow in, you'll be like, oh, this is what I did. And then that is you being a true disciple, and then becoming the way shower. Instead of, guys, we've got to practice prosperity, and then getting mad at everyone who's not doing it. You've got to first master this, and then through example, be like, oh, you're leaning the wrong way. You're worried about money? Let me show you how to lean. Okay. And so that's why it's got to be very top secret between you and higher self, because anybody getting involved puts a third frequency in, and you cannot have anyone else's perspective in this. It's you and higher self, you and spirit. So notice where you have codependency and you hate it. Okay, because you're going to need to be codependent on spirit. You were never supposed to grow up. You were always supposed to be a child of God. You were supposed to get here, make your hands dirty, make all big sandcastles. And then if you want to change it. And nobody would have been like, you wasted time and money. Because you're here to create. And you are feminine. So you are here to be submissive of source, not a man. Now, men need to be submissive to source too. If a man was submissive to source, he'd be a multimillionaire. So it was the same as us, but we would do it from sitting here looking pretty, and they'd probably get their hands dirty because they like that stuff, right? We want to help the world. So there's another definition of love, and it's called service. Okay. And you are here to be of service. Now, some of you are just so exhausted that you've been giving until your fingers are bled. You might want to take a year off of that. That's fine. But ultimately, you're going to return right back to service, because when you are in generosity, you are in service. Okay. And I've spent time with all of you guys, and you're all very generous when you have it. And when you don't have it, you're upset that you don't have it. And so then there's a feeling, and the ego will say, it's not our fault we don't have it, it's their fault they took it. So we've got to make sure that we are always practicing that generosity. And it's been so awesome with like Alwyn and her family living downstairs. It's like, at first I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, and then I'm like, ooh, but a way for me to practice gratitude of what I do have. And Madison's dad's here for living here. And I'm like, great, so I got to practice more what I don't have. But it's helped me because I care about these people so much that I don't want anybody to go without. Now, the old me would have been like, the exchange got to be here, and you got to do this, and you got to pay this, and you got to, and that would have been fair over here if I'm in the mental world. But if I know spirit is my flow of abundance, then I've got to practice that huge level of gratitude before I can get it. Because now it's coming in. It may take a few months, but like my 10th and 10th and 10th and 10th and 10th is literally due to me. And I'm like, hallelujah, praise Jesus. Like, who knew? Who knew that some forgiveness work, some clearing out the subconscious mind that almost killed me, literally. Because the thing is they don't tell you in the ideas of baptism that when you clear out your subconscious mind, you will have a death experience, because you are no longer the same you. You won't think the same. You won't feel the same. You won't want the same things, because your subconscious mind makes up your personality. Everything in your subconscious mind has given you identity. And so when you start to purge that stuff out of there, it literally is a change of worlds. This is the story of the butterfly, and why the butterfly eats so much before it goes into the cocoon, because it's becoming so abundant to survive the season. And in the season, it eats itself. So the caterpillar literally gives itself the ultimate generosity to the butterfly to eat, so it can become the butterfly. And you will do the exact same thing in your subconscious. And it's called Imagineering. And it's literally quantum, what is happening with the butterfly, because it should not be happening in there. But notice, no one's allowed in there. Okay. All it is the caterpillar that's bloated and heavy, and a victim that always has to worry some bird is going to come get its fat behind. Okay. It gets so fat because it's going to survive this season. Right. And then it fasts, doesn't it? It has to fast everything until all it has left to do is become food for the butterfly. And I have a really great scientific breakdown of this structure of how it happens. And it has literally been my 6-month story. I'm like, yep, I went through that. And it's terrifying, because it's probably the caterpillar's all I know how to do right now is give myself to you. That's all I can do. And the divine energy is is it happening? I'm sure there's not anybody going, hey, you're eating my arm, stop. They're not doing that in there, but it is definitely it's the way that one world goes to the other. Because once you are a butterfly, think about how much more abundance and freedom a butterfly has than a caterpillar, right? Not to mention that everyone wants to look at a butterfly. Wow, look how beautiful it is. And it's I know, right? This is my abundance. And the caterpillar is what about me? I'm just overweight, It's where are we? And then we try to fight this process from happening, and so for me, giving away all of this stuff is giving basically what I don't have. And at first it's triggering, and then it starts to feel good, and you start to feel like a child, ooh, Who else can I do? What else can I give? You know, when your kids are little and they start to get rewards like from helping and they just want to keep helping, that's like where it's turned into, you know, and it's just like, oh, this is so fun. But this will be a lifestyle for a little bit. Now, if your subconscious was all cleaned out, it would be literally like you donate $10 and $1 million check shows up, because the time isn't what you're not being tested here. We have to keep in mind, you're not being punished. This isn't karma. You're not in trouble. It's just that you're too heavy in your subconscious and it keeps pulling you away from source, and your ego believes that God doesn't want to give it to you. This is the ultimate tragedy in light workers. This is why they're all broke, or they have to work. You know, you have the power of healing in your hands. You shouldn't have to have a job. You know all this ancient knowledge. People should just be around you. So next year, I'm going to do 2 different classes, and I'm not charging for any of it. Do you know how good this feels? You know how many people I know want to take my class, but I was like, I got to eat, people. And then that's not fair to the people that can pay. But see, now it's like I'm getting mine from over here, and I'm going to have a lot to give. So this is like, and that feels really good, but it didn't feel good at first. So anybody have any questions, or they're like not know what they're supposed to do, or worried about something? Because again, it's all mental warfare at this point. It's this simple. But if for some reason you're not in the flow, it's because you're too heavy. And I don't mean body weight, I mean subconscious. So when I started like really doing my meditation, my hypnosis 3 times a day, I was spending at least 30 minutes in my imagination, heart blowing out, really feeling it. You guys, don't do any of this if you don't feel it, because you're wasting your time. You've got to feel it, okay? And your I ams will be birthed out of what's in your heart. Okay, so, and then include prosperity in those I ams, because again, you want to put that into your subconscious mind. And then while you're saying, I am this, and then you're demonstrating it, well, your body's like, well, we are. Because she's demonstrating it, she's giving, and she's saying we are. See how, notice when you're in lack, you stop giving, okay? You stop being joyful, and you start to go into survival. So your subconscious is like, oh, we're in lack. But if I'm in lack, but I'm still giving, and I'm still saying I am prosperity, even though I don't have 2 pennies in my bank account, eventually my body's going to buy into my bullshit, okay? Which is not, it's the truth of who I am. And so you give to the point where you're like, I mean, actually, if you had $10 and you gave away one of your dollars, that would be awesome. Okay. So it's like, and that can be scary because you're like, I got $10. But the way the source is teaching me now is tomorrow is already covered. All you got to do is deal with today. Today is your day. And any problem that you have tomorrow, make sure you give it to me, because it's not, don't hurt yourself. I used to tell Luke this all the time. He'd be playing and he'd be so excited, and all of a sudden he'd sit and go, when do I have to go to my dad's? And I'd be like, not till tomorrow, buddy. And then he'd be like, it would ruin his joy because he had to go tomorrow. And so I go, stop stealing today's joy from tomorrow. And then of course I heard myself saying that. I was like, I do that all the time. I'm having an okay day today, but tomorrow this bill's due and I don't have the money, you see? But if I was living on faith, I'd be like, that's God's job. I'm playing. Okay, so your job is to play like a child, give like a child, celebrate like a child, love like a child, and lean like a child. All right. Okay, so how's that feel? Does that feel true for you? I mean, in your heart, maybe your ego, no, your belief system, so, but inside of your heart, inside of your spirit, does that feel like your truth? Because I will tell you, it is. And it does. It takes some practice. But if you just donate the next 3 months to living in spiritual prosperity, no matter what is happening, everything will change. Because like by the time I stopped trying to break my fall and stop what was happening and just go, well, I'm in it now, I've got to go all the way, it only took 90 days. But I've been going through this for about a year, guys, because I kept trying to break my fall. I kept trying to play God when I was supposed to turn it over. I kept trying to fix situations God was trying to remove from me to give me something better. All right. Because you have put so much work into this spiritual reality for yourself. It's all waiting for you. Okay. But we're so used to breadcrumbs. You know, we've all been so manipulated past the point of our own value that we've devalued ourselves. We're like, no, I just need to get this rent paid. I can't lean this week. Never say that again. No, you have to lean so you can get your rent paid every month. But again, this does not feel true in the beginning, because I fought this for literally 6 months and almost lost everything because of it, because I was trying, I just couldn't trust. I couldn't. And here I am channeling every week. That don't make no sense. But there was a part of me that's like, no, I can give this spiritual stuff away, but I'm not entitled to the bounty of heaven because of my childhood. And I know you can relate. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have time for, because I want to take my kids to get some ice cream. But please think about this. Think about your spiritual prosperity. It is about giving a 10th. It's about being generous. It's about playing. It's about celebrating. You know, it's who you are when you have everything covered. You know what I mean? Like when your bills are paid and you have some money, that's who you are, except way more. So when you don't have money, you've got to be her anyways, because then you'll just be naturally leaning up, because your spirit is pulling you, but that subconscious mind is loaded AF. And so it's trying to pull you to the stream because you deserve it and it's your time. We are supposed to be becoming the butterflies now. It's 2023. It's the activation year. It's the 7. And so if we're not leaning over, it's because we're top heavy. Okay, so do yourself the ultimate service and let your subconscious mind go. Yes, parts of you will never be the same. I don't miss none of it. Now that it's gone, I'm like, I don't miss that at all. But misery loves company, you know, like you get to know something and then it becomes part of you. So, all right. I love you guys. I hope this helped. I've got a really fun meditation coming for you. I know I keep saying that, but the only hang up that I've had so far is getting the music on there right, because I'm not very techie. So now I've got the right music and we're going to put it all together and you're going to love it. So I will see you guys next week, and good luck in your spiritual prosperity that you all deserve. Okay. Bye guys. Love you.